Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
Hey, and this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com.
Today, we are going to talk about Cadence and what it means for your cold email campaign. If you're unsure about how long you should wait between emails, this cast is for you. You'll learn the effect of increasing email frequency and when you should consider doing it and when you shouldn't. And while we're at it, we'll also share a few surprising insights we found after looking at the stats from the last 1 million replies detected on QuickMail. Enjoy. Today we're going to talk again about Cadence because unfortunately I screwed up with my recording.
I told Jeremy I'm just impressed that we've managed 81 flawlessly saved and recorded episodes up until now. So we're going to go back a second time through it. And as a listener, hopefully you'll benefit from a more polished Cadence episode because we're old pros at covering this topic. And I'm going to kick things off here. We're talking about cadence, which is the amount of time that you put in between each follow-up email you send. But
I got a question for you. Why don't we just have no time in between?
Because that means if you're listening to the show, you know by now that sending follow-up cold emails is a good thing. Follow-ups help us get more replies. But if there's no space in between each email, Jeremy, if you were on my list, you would probably get 5 or 10 cold emails in a single hour, right? And that would be not a good thing. That would probably be irritating, I'm guessing.
Well, you definitely get a reply, I think, from me.
That's true. We'd probably get more replies from the prospects on the list, regardless, as we'll kind of get to in a moment. But whether or not those replies are good ones is the big question we'll have to ask if we send follow-ups with no delays.
Let's go back. So mentioning cadence is the time between emails, right?
Right. And before we dive into what cadence is and how many days or hours you should space your emails with, let's talk about timing, because this is essentially what we're trying to do here by proper cold email spacing or cadence. Timing's everything. Now, Jeremy, let's go back a few episodes. Do you remember when we talked about the future of artificial intelligence and its implications in the world of cold email?
Yeah, I haven't changed my mind.
and I haven't either. But I remember you had told me that right after we recorded that episode, you got a cold email from a company that basically asked you if you'd be interested in taking a look at their artificial intelligence and maybe adding it to QuickMail. It was kind of a classic cold email, but you had mentioned something about the timing. Do you want to share what happened there?
Yeah, it was a bit surreal. We just finished the podcast about AI and how to handle replies. I think it's episode 46 for those interested. And I just received like an email from someone having an AI technology to handle replies. And I was like, holy cow, that's just like what we were just discussing. So of course I was interested. Of course I was in the right mental space to actually answer to this email, add it to the conversation or to my context. So I wanted to follow up this conversation and I did reply.
I remember something you had told me was along the lines of, if this email was sent 2 months previously, you probably wouldn't have replied to it. In other words, timing played a crucial role in whether or not you replied to that email.
Yeah, I was just trying to find more elements to argue against your case in that AI stuff.
More firepower for your for your side. Okay, so the takeaway is timing matters. But here's the important part here. What we just talked about, we're sort of looking back. I know what Jeremy was just discussing because I was having this conversation about artificial intelligence with him. So it made sense to me that that was a good time to approach Jeremy if you had something to do with artificial intelligence and cold email. But here's the thing. When's the right time to approach your prospects? When's that perfect moment where if your email landed in their inbox, they would have to reply?
You don't know.
Exactly. You almost certainly don't know. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part, it's a roll of the dice. So spacing out your cold emails over a period of, let's say, months instead of weeks or days is going to give you just a better shot at approaching your prospects on the right day, meaning you should be able to get more replies if you're doing a good job with cadence, right? We're sort of transitioning here. Now we can talk about how to space these emails.
Yeah. So in essence, what you're saying is because we don't really know when that person is going to have that need potentially or suddenly be looking into this part of the business.
Yep.
Because you don't really know, then your best shot is to effectively space your cadence so it covers a large portion of time.
Exactly. So there's a couple hidden benefits here. As you are adding follow-up emails to your cold email sequence, it's just a fact that the more follow-ups you send, the more replies you'll receive. Jeremy, I think you've got a stat for us in this regard.
Yeah. So here's the trend that we can see from more than 1 million replies on QuickMail. The first email gets 37.5% reply. Of course, you got some people who will get more and some people who will get less. But on average, if you look at all the replies, then you'll get like a third that comes from the first email that you sent, which means if you're stopping there, you're passing on 2/3 of the replies already that you could get. Now, the first follow-up, so the second touch or second email that you're sending, will get a third replies for 31.5% of the replies will come from the first follow-up that you're sending.
So let me just get this straight. The first touch, the first cold email I send a prospect is on average going to bring me a third of my results.
Yeah, 37.5.
Okay. And then the first follow-up I send after that, that's going to account for another third. So right there's 2/3 of my replies.
31.5.
Okay.
That's correct. And then the rest goes down very quickly. So you got the second follow-up will get you 17.7% replies. The third follow-up, 8%. But, it's a long tail game, right? So you'll end up having an extra third from that long tail.
And how far is this tail going to go? I mean, is there a limit to what you can see as when you should stop sending follow-ups?
Yeah, I mean, if we take, numbers like that, actually is not necessarily the right picture of the reality. The reason for it is a lot of people stop after 3 emails. So they won't appear on my graph if they only send 3 follow-ups and they never get a reply. But you do have some people who actually use this and manage to still get replies after 24 follow-ups.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, but a small caveat here, it's like 0.0001% of the replies, that reach.
Are coming from the 24th touch.
Yeah, exactly. So it's...
Gotcha.
But you still get some replies, right? And in fact, that's a cool thing too. You actually told me that you're getting like positive replies as well, even...
And the 12th touch. I think we sent something like, we were trying out if a humorous email at the 12th touch would get a positive reply. I think we threw a limerick in there. It was kind of like the cold email equivalent to a Hail Mary, where we were just like, let's go for it and really try and get something out of this list, even on the 12th touch. And some replies came in that surprised me. Something like, okay, you finally broke me down. Let's talk. Here's my cell. And keep in mind, this is sent from an email that has a limerick in it, and this is a 12th follow-up. So what's the bottom line here? Keep sending emails. You're going to keep getting replies. The replies are going to start diminishing, it sounds like, after the second follow-up, maybe. But if you have valuable prospects, it still probably makes sense to keep reaching out several times. We're talking, I don't know, between 5, 10, maybe up to the 12th point. Either way, you're going to want to send follow-ups. And if you stop after the first or second email, you're leaving a lot of replies and money on the table, right? So at this point, we need to figure out how to space if we're going to be sending all these follow-ups so that you get the best results.
Yeah, so at this stage, what you really have to think about is if you bring what Jack is saying about you want to hit your prospect on a long period of time, and if you couple that with the fact that some people only send 2 or 3 emails as a follow-up, then you're not going to cover a long distance or a long time. So if you want to be able to still send them an email after 6 months, 8 months, a year time, I think you're going to have to think very closely as to how much time do you want to wait between touches.
There's 2 ways you can think about spacing out your emails, the cadence of your cold email campaign. I'll call it the easy way and the Italian way. We'll get to that in a moment. This is for those of us out there who are brand new to cold email. We've got our first couple campaigns up and running, and you want to do some testing with spacing out your emails. The recommendation here is put 3 days or 72 hours in between each touch.
Business days, right?
Business days, exactly. You do this, and for the most part, you will have a campaign that's stretched out with enough timing so that your messages aren't too frequent where you annoy your prospects. And it's spaced out enough so that if you've got, let's say, 5 or 8 touches, you should have a greater chance of reaching your prospect when their timing is right for them. Okay, so that's a simple method, 72 hours between each email, you're good to go.
There is another fact here that you want to be aware, guys, is, okay, it's nice to cover, 8 months, 12 months, more than a year time with your cold email sequence. I really love that. At the same time, if you want to get more replies, there's an easy variable you can play with, which is simply shortening the time between your emails. If you shorten the space between your emails, you're gonna get more replies. That's a fact. But the question is, like, they're not always going to be positive replies. You may actually get more angry people about, like, hey, dude, let me breathe.
Right.
Or give me some space. Or, I'll come back when I have time on my agenda, not yours. And you may actually have more replies, but not all positive. So one thing I would say is, if you're actually going for shortening the time, and I think you should try, you need to pay very close attention to your positive-negative ratio, to your positive reply rate.
So just to reiterate, this is a fact. Jeremy did some number crunching, and he found that the closer the follow-ups are sent, the higher the reply rates. That's just, across the board, a fact. But, like you just mentioned, it's about positive replies coming in, not necessarily just more negative replies. So there's a sweet spot here. And Jeremy told me about this mathematical sequence. It's called the Fibonacci sequence. It's a set of numbers that you can actually use to space out your cold emails. And here's the best part. It takes advantage of this fact that the more frequent your cold emails are, the higher reply rate, but it'll start to back off over time so you're not seen as annoying, right? So with that, Jeremy, tell us what this Fibonacci sequence is and how we can use it to plan our emails.
Fibonacci sequence is actually pretty straightforward. Is you start with a number, and as you keep on adding more numbers, you actually add the last 2 numbers. So it goes, if you go 1 plus 0 equal 1, so the next number is 1. But then 1 plus 1 equal 2, so the next number is 2. And then 1 plus 2 equal 3, and so on and so on. So you end up with the sequence of 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 13, and so on and so on, 21, and so on and so on. So like Jack said, you keep on having incremental delay between your emails, which allow you to still be present without being constant firing at your prospect.
And for me, this is the sweet spot here for Cadence, because it does 2 things well. It uses this cold email fact that the more frequent your cold emails are, the more replies you're going to get. So it uses this to our advantage in the beginning of the campaign. So the first 3 emails are sent quickly. But then after that, it starts to back off. And with each consecutive email, it backs off even further. So it's going to give you the benefit of expanding the time that your campaign lasts so that you have a better chance of reaching them at the right moment when it's right for their company, for that prospect.
That's right. 2 more things, for. The first one is, it's not because you're using Fibonacci or you're using 3 days in between that you can have lazy follow-ups. So do check episode 6 on how to do a good follow-up.
Right.
It should always have more information. The other thing is, it doesn't have to be a fully fledged email. It could be like, just put that piece of extra information would be interesting to you on the first follow-up or something like that. It doesn't have to be a full-fledged, here we go, here's my value offering again with a different offering. It could be like something much shorter, much simpler, and just an idea of being on top of mind.
That's a great point here. We're assuming that each follow-up that you're sending is well written and adds to the conversation, and not, like you just mentioned, just a regular bump email that could be seen as annoying if you continue to reach out with the same repetitive, hey, did you see this? Hey, did you see this? There's a few exceptions to general using the Fibonacci sequence or a 3-day spacing for your cold emails. And I want to think about a few of these exceptions just before you're listening and you're ready to edit your campaign cadence here. So for example, if there's an event that you're emailing around, so let's say you're looking to set up some appointments or meetings with people while at this conference. The Fibonacci sequence doesn't really apply, nor does a 3-day gap between emails. Actually, when an event is going on that you're emailing around, try reversing the Fibonacci sequence, where maybe you reach out 2 weeks before the event.
Oh, love that.
And if you don't get a reply, then reach out 1 week before the event. If no reply, then maybe 2 days before the event, then 1 day, and then day of, right? So you're sort of stacking it in the opposite way, but it works because there's a specific time-based thing, this event that's going to happen. It's not going to change when it occurs. And as you get closer and closer to the events, the emails become more and more relevant, especially if they haven't responded to you. So just keeping that in mind as you're planning out your cadence here.
Love that. So it's a reverse Fibonacci and then the day of the event, and then you can go back with a normal Fibonacci after the event.
Exactly. Right. But again, for the most part, the Fibonacci won't let you down. Definitely set it up with a campaign that's already out the door and see if just changing the cadence will increase your positive reply rate. And this is the magical metric that we want to track here. It's not just about replies because those can be misleading.
And like Jack said, make sure you try to aim for at least 50-50 in terms of positive reply rate, positive versus negative replies. And if you don't really know what you're doing, stick to the 3 days for a start to get like that baseline on which you can then have more experimentation.
Okay, Jeremy, we got this a second go around as well. Thanks.
Great cast, Jack.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay, so in today's episode, you heard that timing is everything. So sending emails over a period of months instead of weeks is going to give you the best chance of reaching prospects at the right moment. Next, 2/3 of replies come from follow-ups. So if you're starting out, begin with spacing 3 days between each email or touch. But if you're more advanced, try using the Fibonacci series as your cadence and then A/B test from there for best results. Last, the data tells us that following up many times works. Just avoid sending those typical bump emails. And if you're unsure how to do that, check out episode 6 to learn how to write the perfect follow-up email.
Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high vibe by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher or TuneIn. That works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast.
So they can send awesome emails.
And make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.